Hi everyone, I'm John C. Morley, the host of the JMOR Tech Talk Show and Inspirations for Your Life. Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome once again to, the JMOR Tech Talk Show. It is so great to be with everyone here. If this is your very first time joining me, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you, and I want to say welcome. You're always welcome here. If you've been here 1 time, 5 times, 10 times, 100 times, or maybe even more, or lost track in the count, I want to say thank you and welcome, but I also want to say the words welcome back. I really do appreciate people that enjoy the quality and content of my show and the education that I produce here and want to make that part of their life. So again, thank you so very much. Those that have been coming here before and those that are new. Don't forget to check out believemeachieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. If you guys are thirsty, I have an RO water here with some fresh lemon. Maybe you want to get yourself a snack, a cookie, a piece of fruit, granola bar, whatever floats your boat. Whether it's healthy or not, that's totally up to you guys. All right, let's kick this show off. So what we do every week is we come up with tech reels, and we produce those, and they go out 2 a day, starting with Monday through Sunday. So this show basically took the past Monday and went through the Sunday of all the tech topics that we basically explode a little more here on the show. So welcome, everyone, to the JMOR Tech Talk Show. Yes, trends. When AI starts costing real money, it is Series 5, show number 26. Who am I? Oh, sure. I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, engineer, marketing specialist, video producer, podcast host, coach, keynote speaker, graduate student at Montclair State University, and a passionate lifelong learner. And I'm so grateful now, ladies and gentlemen, to be a published author. Today, this Friday, which if you're tuning in live, it is June 26th. And I'm talking about a shift that most people are not fully prepared for. What is that? AI. Artificial intelligence is no longer just about intelligence anymore. We said this before. It's a whole infrastructure. It's not just a service, but it's a whole infrastructure. It's a whole environment. It is about cost, real world costs, energy costs, infrastructure costs, and societal costs. Interesting, right? So the core message here is this. AI is moving beyond software, as we know. Again, it's no longer hardware. It's no longer just software. It's morphed into an ever-changing, evolving environment. It is becoming, as we say, the environment infrastructure. And infrastructure always has a price. Every prompt, every model, every automated system depends on physical resources to execute. What looks like digital progress is actually physical consumption at scale. And that changes everything. Think about that for just a moment. Every time you query a ChatGPT, let's say a Microsoft Copilot, or even a Claude, you are costing that resource money. Somewhere, a company has to pay for those resources. Our insights are the key here today. AI is no longer just software. It is becoming global infrastructure AI systems. And they now require power grids, data centers, and even physical resources to function at scale. And the problem is most people don't really understand like how this is happening, right? How it's happening, why it's happening. And companies are starting to put AI on a budget. For years, companies asked, how can we get more AI? Now they're asking a different question. How much is AI actually costing us? As AI's adoption starts to explode across businesses, organizations, they're all discovering that powerful AI tools can also generate surprisingly large bills. That's why new tools are emerging that let companies track who is using AI, how often they're using it, and how much is it costing us. Think about that. We've reached the point where AI spending needs its own management system, kind of like print management, right? This is not just a software story. It's a sign that artificial intelligence is rapidly becoming a core business expense, kind of like travel, right? Kind of like gas, right alongside payroll, software, now infrastructure. The AI race is no longer just about capabilities anymore. It's about controlling the cost of intelligence. If AI helps employees work faster, but dramatically increases operating costs, is it still worth it? Now, I know a lot of you are asking, and it's a great question, how much does AI cost to run? And, that's a great question, and there's a lot to it, right? So the cost of AI ranges from free to millions of dollars, but even though it appears to be free, guys, it's not free to everybody. Somebody has to pay at some point in time. Companies all have to pay, even if they're offering it to you at free. So free to millions of dollars, depending entirely on your needs. For most individuals, standard off-the-shelf chatbots like ChatGPT, Claude Pro, and Google Gemini, and let's say Microsoft Copilot are fine. And basically, they do what people need. And they need to pay basically a standard fee of about $20 a month. And they're happy with that. For individuals and personal use, the free tier, many top-tier AI tools, including ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, offer basic, fully functional versions for free. What happens? Well, they limit how much time you can do something, how many queries you can make. If you can upload files to them, they have a limit on that, okay? Now, premium subscriptions are different. Upgrading to advanced models, higher usage models, and faster response times typically cost $15 to $20 per month. Pay-as-you-go, developers often use this, and heavy users often pay directly through APIs like OpenAI or OpenRouter, where you pay fractions of a penny per token, a chunk of characters or words. So for businesses, there is another tier yet. Yep. So for business and small teams, off-the-shelf software using pre-built tools for writing, marketing, or customer service ranges from $20 to $500 a month. Yeah. Per user. Not per company, per user. So custom AI solutions, building or training a custom AI chatbot or integration for your business can cost anywhere from $20,000 to $150,000, depending on the data complexity and regulatory compliance needs. And that's a big concern, guys, is the regulatory compliance. If you don't pay attention to it, well, it might bite you in the end with some hefty legal fees and fines. All right. So now we have another level. It's enterprise, okay? Enterprise and custom development AI. Large-scale custom AI developing cutting-edge solutions, proprietary AI systems can scale from 100,000 to $500,000 upfront, with ongoing computing and maintenance costs scaring a lot higher than that. Infrastructure is running massive AI projects or hosting your own AI cluster requires heavy instruments in hardware like graphic processing units and cloud computing. So the question a lot of people are saying is, so what makes AI so expensive? That's a good question. It requires massive physical infrastructures, monumental electricity consumption, even damage to some of our, human resources, and continuously highly paid labor to function. The cost of AI generally breaks down into 4 main pillars. What are those pillars? Well, specialized hardware, training and running advanced models like those from OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic. Requires thousands of highly specialized graphic processing units, or GPUs. These custom chips cost billions of dollars to purchase and upgrade just to be able to perform some queries. Massive energy and cooling operations. These data centers are power hogs. Operating systems must be kept cool, meaning massive amounts of electricity and water are continuously consumed just to keep the servers from overheating. Data gathering and the labor. Building AI isn't just typing prompts, guys. It requires gathering, cleaning, and labeling vast quantities of data, which requires highly skilled data scientists and engineers. The 4th pillar is heavy computing inference. Every time you ask a generative AI a question, it loads vast amounts of data into memory, moves information across chips, and expands physical energy to generate your answer. Because tokens cost real money to process, operating these models at scale results in immense bills for developers and business models. So people ask me, so what is a token with AI? And that's a great question. So an artificial intelligence AI, a token, is the fundamental unit of data processed by language models like ChatGPT, Claude, etc. You could think of tokens as bite-sized building blocks, like syllables or word fragments that AI uses to read, remember, and even generate language. Words versus tokens. Tokens are not exactly the same as words. The rule of thumb in English is 1 token is roughly 4 characters, or 0.75 words. Okay. So how it works. Short, common words like the are usually a single token, while longer or less common words like tokenization are split into multiple tokens. Input versus output tokens. Every interaction with AI has 2 categories of tokens, both which are usually measured and billed. The input token and the output token. Then there's a context window. The AI memory limit is called, and it's context window, and it measures entirely in tokens. And this represents the maximum amount of information your prompt plus AI replies. The model can hold in its working memory at once. That's what that is. Frontier models have expanded context windows ranging from 128,000 tokens to over 2 million tokens. Because AI models are complex to run, companies and developers are typically charged by total number of tokens processed. Monitoring token usage is highly important, and this is how they regain their bills. So how many tokens will ChatGPT give you for free? Let's see if we can break this down so you understand it maybe a little bit more, because it can be a little confusing. You can use OpenAI's flagship models completely free, but your access is gated by a high capability limit. You receive roughly 10 messages every 5 hours on the flagship model. The mini fallback, once you exceed those 10 messages, ChatGPT automatically downgrades your chat to a lighter, faster mini model. You can send an unlimited number of messages to mini model for free until your 5-hour window resets. Dynamic adjustments, these caps change dynamically throughout the day depending on how busy the servers are. Context windows, the free tier significantly limits how many tokens the AI can remember at one time within a single chat. The free cap, the free tier context window, is limited to 8,000 to 16,000 tokens. That translates to 6,000 to 12,000 words. What happens when you exceed it? If your conversation history or upload documents go over this limit, ChatGPT will begin forgetting the very first message you sent in the thread to make room for new ones. Really interesting concept, right? Developer API, free tokens. If you're an app developer using OpenAI API instead of the consumer ChatGPT, OpenAI occasionally runs free trial tiers. Historically, new accounts receive $5 in free API credits. Upon signing up, which covers roughly several million tokens, depending on whether you utilize cheaper mini models or advanced flagship models, that's the whole key, guys. So the thing is, with AI, I think no matter what we're doing or what we're trying to accomplish here, is that we have to understand how it works and how it's built, because it does cost some money. The real cost of AI, it's measured in electricity, and it's not just computation. Every model run consumes measurable energy that scales rapidly with usage. Data centers are becoming one of the fastest growing energy consumers. AI expansion is directly increasing global electricity demand, and that's a big issue, guys. A very, 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 very big issue for a lot of people to understand. But let's kind of dive into this right now. So Ohio just put parents back in charge. A court has ruled that social media platforms can require parental consent before children under 16 create any kind of account. Think about that. For years, social media companies have argued that kids should have direct access to their platforms. Now the debate is shifting. One side says these rules help protect children from harmful content, quote unquote, addiction, and online risks. The other says, well, they limit privacy, free speech, and access to information. This isn't just an Ohio story, guys. It's part of a growing global movement to rethink how much access children should have to social media. The real question is simple. Should social media companies help raise your kids, or should parents? Where do you stand? Is that really a social media company's job? I think a lot of people are trying to put the blame back on others. Norway just said no to AI in elementary schools. While much of the world is racing to put AI into classrooms, Norway is hitting the brakes. The country is imposing a near ban on generative AI for elementary school students. Think about that. One of the world's most technologically advanced nations is worried that AI may be helping children skip the very skills they need most: reading, writing, and math. This isn't really about artificial intelligence. It's about a much bigger question. If AI can think of students, are students still learning how to think? As schools rush to embrace new technology, Norway is asking a big question: whether some lessons are too important to outsource, and should children learn with AI or learn first and use AI later? I think AI is great as a tool, but it should never be used as something to replace your own brain. I like to go back to a concept that I learned many years ago from my parents that, my mom had a retail business. And I got to tell you, one thing very interesting about it was that they took the business and we hired different people, kids from school and stuff, but we always wanted to make sure they could actually make change without the register. A lot of people couldn't. And that's a very important thing when you're making change and not needing a computer. I was working a food booth the other night with the Knights at a carnival. And the one I said, "Oh, you're like a machine. Like, we're going to miss you." And I was already processing the thing. And I was already said, "Am I doing the change fast?" And I was calculating in my head. And it's like, "You're like a machine." I think that's an important thing to understand, that we need to first learn how to make change without a computer, without a register. Those are things a lot of people say, "Well, gee, I don't want to do that." It's important. Very, very important. So AI just made your next iPhone more expensive. I think AI has nothing to do with your next smartphone, is what you're probably saying, right? Think again. Apple says rising memory chip costs are forcing it to raise prices on future products. Why? Because AI data centers are consuming massive amounts of the same components needed for consumer electronics. Think about that. The AI boom isn't just changing technology anymore. It's changing the world. It's changing prices. The race to build bigger and more powerful AI systems is now affecting the cost of the devices millions of people use every day. This is not just an Apple story anymore. It's the first sign that AI and its revolution may be showing up directly in your wallet. The question is simple. If AI keeps getting smarter, how much more are you willing to pay for the technology? I think that's a pretty big conundrum that we're all going to have to solve soon. What if the internet you see isn't the internet that exists? What are you talking about, John? What if your social media feed is only showing you a tiny fraction of what actually is online? A growing trend called the TikTok Farlands claims there are hidden corners of TikTok filled with strange content most users never see. Think about that for a moment. The real question isn't what's hidden, it's who decides what you get to see. Are you exploring the internet, or is the internet exploring you? It's basically exploring your likes, your dislikes, right? Humans, ladies and gentlemen, are being asked to get out of the way now. Delivery robots are becoming a common sight on city sidewalks. Supporters say they're convenient. Critics say people are being forced to move out of the way for machines. Think about that. For generations, sidewalks were built for people. Now, we're debating how much space robots should get. If a robot and a person meet on a sidewalk, who should have the right of way? This reminds me of sailing, when we had the right of the way, when the wind comes over and the sail is on the right side, the starboard side, on the starboard side, the wind coming over, you have the right of way. If it's on the other side, the left, the port, then the other boat has the right of way, if that boat is also on starboard. So the thing is, what boat has the right of way if they are both on a port tack? Well, when two sailboats are both on a port tack, the leeward boat, the boat furthest downwind, or furthest from where the wind is blowing, has the right of way. So if there are two boats, I'm on the right, there's a boat on my left, and the wind is coming over my side, the one that is in the wind is known as the windward boat because it's right by the wind. Therefore, the other boat is the one that technically has the right of way. Pretty cool, right? What if, ladies and gentlemen, seeing is no longer believing? A photo, a video, a voice recording. For years, those were considered proof. Not anymore. Police are now expanding efforts to educate families about deep fakes as AI-generated videos, images, and voices become increasingly more realistic each day. Think about that. The next scam, fake rumor, or damaging image may look completely real. This, ladies and gentlemen, is not just a technology story. Nope. It's a reminder that in the age of AI, seeing is no longer enough to believe. If you can't trust your eyes and ears, well, what can you trust? I think that's going to change a lot of people's perspective and how they use and manage and interact with AI. Here's one that's going to blow your mind. What if the AI watchdog was just let go? The person responsible for regulating artificial intelligence and data privacy in the United Kingdom has stepped down following a workplace investigation. Think about that. The official overseeing some of the country's biggest technology and privacy decisions is now out of a job. This isn't just a leadership story, and we know he stepped down because he didn't want to be scrutinized. Probably felt he did something wrong. It's a reminder that accountability applies to everyone, even the people enforcing the rules. Should leaders be held to a higher standard than everyone else? That's the question. I think that's hurting a lot of people. But now, suddenly, it's like it's okay for them to do it, but everybody else can't. Here's one that's going to really blow your mind. Students, Students walked out recently on Google's CEO's address. When Google's CEO took the stage at a university graduation, dozens of students just walked out. Think about that. The people building the future of technology are facing growing pushback from the people who will inherit it. This isn't just a protest, ladies and gentlemen. It's a sign that the debate over AI, big tech, and corporate influence is only getting louder. Would you have stayed or would you have walked out? It's no longer, we've been in the industry for many years and you're going to do what we tell you. It's, we're in the industry now. We're the ones that have a voice, not just Google's head CEO. Interesting. Your phone, let's just say, just got hacked by a government alert. Imagine waking up at 1:30 a.m. to an emergency alert on your phone, only to discover the government didn't actually send it. Authorities in Brazil are investigating a suspected cyber attack after an unauthorized message was, well, pushed to phones across multiple regions. Think about that for a moment. If hackers can hijack trusted alert systems, what else can they access? Our public resources? I think the time for us to be proactive is now and not once it hits us. And ladies and gentlemen, the World Cup is now protected by anti-drone technology. Yup. Imagine going to a World Cup match and knowing the sky is being watched too. Officials say all 78 World Cup matches in the United States are featuring counter-drone systems. Ponder that for a moment. The biggest threat to a major sporting event might not come from the gates or through them. It could come from above. How much security is too much security? And is that an invasion of our privacy? Speaking about World Cup, how about waiting months for this and finally getting your ticket? Your World Cup ticket might not actually exist. Imagine saving for months, buying World Cup tickets and traveling to the stadium and finding out your seats were never going to be there. That's exactly what happened to several fans who bought tickets through resale platforms. Think about that one. The biggest sporting event on earth. It doesn't matter if your ticket never gets you through the gate. If you can't go through the gate, you're never going to see it. Would you trust a resale site for a once-in-a-lifetime event? My answer would be no. No. There's probably a lot of security with the type of tickets. And I think if we understand what to look for, that's part of it. But they can still beat you. I mean, scalpers are illegal, but that doesn't mean people don't do it. And with ticket prices going 500, 800, thousands and more just for a soccer game, that's a problem. A very, very big problem. We've talked about betting before, and we've talked about different ways you can wager, even online casinos. But the world is shifting right now. The internet just invented, that's right, human bounties. What is that, John? Well, imagine logging onto a website and finding people offering money for strangers to do crazy things like quit their jobs, get a tattoo, complete extreme challenges, or make major life decisions. Think about that. That's even worse than the TikTok saga where people are doing things. For years, the internet rewarded clicks, views, and likes. Now, some platforms are experimenting with rewarding real-world actions. The line between online entertainment and real-life influence is becoming, well, increasingly blurred, and it could be a real safety concern. When money, attention, and internet fame suddenly collide, how far will people actually go? Would you accept money from a stranger online to do something that could change your life forever or potentially ruin your reputation? I'd hope not. But people do funny things, don't they? And your AI may soon need an ankle monitor. Yeah, this is kind of funny. Lawmakers are pushing for location tracking technology in the world's most advanced AI chips to prevent them from secretly being diverted to countries like China. Supporters say it is about national security. Critics say it could create new costs, restrictions, and challenges for the tech industry. This is not just a chip story. It's a reminder that artificial intelligence is becoming so powerful that governments now want to know exactly where the hardware is and who is using it. When technology becomes this important, who should control it? Companies, customers, or governments? That's the big question right now, guys. And AI growth is now limited by physical world constraints, chips, land, and energy supply. They're becoming the bottleneck of how things can get produced or not. The race for AI dominance is also a race for infrastructure control. Companies with power and hardware access gain long-term advantages. Automation is shifting from task replacement to full workflow replacement. Entire job processes are being handled by systems rather than individuals. And that is getting people to think. And governments are starting to regulate AI based on cost and risk impacts. Policy is shifting toward control of resource usage and deployment scale. Imagine getting a bill for $500, $800, $1,000 just for AI. And the thing of it is that you're paying money for AI, but it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. AI scaling is introducing something very interesting: environmental trade-offs, not previously considered. We talked about the zoo being, a few weeks ago, being the data center's biggest enemy. Technology growth now intersects with sustainability concerns, and this is getting a lot of political debate. This is no longer becoming a question about what's going on, but what's really happening. And I think these are things that a lot of people don't understand. Okay? And I know a lot of you out there are saying, hey, this is interesting. But AI has some hurdles to climb. And we as humans have to embrace that. Is AI moving too quickly right now? Do we need to slow it down? I've said before that we have to make sure a human stays in the loop all the time. AI, when we think about, games like the Major League Baseball and the FIFA Cup, they can basically make calls, right? And the main referee can override that call, but probably wouldn't because the data's there. But when it comes down to AI making a life-affecting decision, regardless of, or even safety, and like we said, making the decision of, well, who do I avoid first? That becomes a problem. It becomes an algorithm, but who do they decide to avoid? It should avoid everybody. But there's being biases programmed into these systems, unfortunately. And ladies and gentlemen, the hidden economy of AI is resource consumption at massive scale. Behind every digital interaction is a physical cost structure. So this is a big question. And everyone asks me this quite frequently, will the cost of AI go down? So whether it gets cheaper or not depends on what exactly you're paying for. The per unit cost is plummeting. Okay. The cost to generate basic AI responses has plummeted by over 90% as hardware, software, and data center efficiencies improve. Analysts like Gartner predict these unit prices will contribute to drops by over 90% per unit costs. Your total AI bill will likely rise, though. Despite cheaper processing, total AI spending continues to grow. Because you see, the technology is cheaper, people and companies use it much more often, running more complex autonomous agents and utilizing advanced reasoning models that consume many more tokens. Consumer subscriptions may increase. You might see subscription prices like the standard $20 a month fee for premium models go up because, see, the highly advanced AI requires enormous amounts of electricity and infrastructure. Many companies currently subsidize these services and are facing pressure to become profitable. Open source AI is getting more affordable. If you want to keep costs down, you can utilize increasingly capable open weight models that can be hosted on local hardware or utilized via pay-as-you-go APIs for a fraction of the cost. So we talked about some of the cost. What's the cost of Claude? We haven't talked a lot about Claude. So Claude has different pricing models too, just like ChatGPT. And we talked about ChatGPT's model. So they have a free model. Claude has a free model. And then they have a pro model, $17 per month if you paid up front for a year. Otherwise, it's $20 monthly. Everything in the free plan, you get the Claude code. You also get Claude Cowork. You get Claude Design, access to unlimited projects to organize chats and documents, access to research, ability to use more Claude models, Claude for Microsoft 365 and Claude for Microsoft Outlook. Get everything in the Pro in the next model. 5 times to 20 times more usage than Pro. Higher outputs, limits for all tasks early, and access to advanced Claude features. So I think a lot of people, when we think about this and we think about resources, the biggest thing I can tell you is that people don't understand how these fees are getting charged. Let's look at ChatGPT's prices, okay? We can kind of compare them a little bit. So ChatGPT has different pricing as well. Basically, they have a free plan, okay? Then they have a plan that's called their Go plan. Keep chatting with expanded access for $8 and more access to GPT 5.5. And then they have the $20 plan. Do more with advanced features. Like you have Go, just like you have in the $8. You get advanced reasoning with GPT 5.5. You get more complex, accurate image creation. Expanded deep research in agent mode. Expanded memory and context, projects, tasks, and custom GPTs. Expanded codex usage. Early access to new features. And you got the $100 a month model, right? The $100 a month model is one I think that is one that a lot of people like. They don't realize that. And that could be a big problem because so that one you think that's $20 more. But then they have one that's $200. Then they have one that's even more. So as we think about all these things, there's lots of different AI models out there. There's lots of so people say, who is the most expensive AI system? And you're probably talking around 1.25 to 2.5 billion is the price tag for the highest development cost for API usage for GPT-5. And the highest API usage fees. Roughly, in the commercial model, outputting token pricing is roughly $600 per million tokens. If you're looking for an AI system to use and research, you can see there's different ones. So the question is, how much do pharma companies, pay for AI let's say per day? Let's do it per day, okay? Let's look at per day and let's see how that factors in. Based on the market data of 2026, the global pharmaceutical industry spends roughly $11 million to $6 million per day on artificial intelligence infrastructure platforms and consultants. A top 20 big pharma corporations such as Pfizer, Roche, Eli Lilly typically spends between $70,000 and $275,000 per day on AI. So that gave you something. So how much do banks spend on AI? How much do you think they spend, if you had to guess? So the global banking sector is projected to spend over $38 billion on AI, representing roughly 60% of the total bank IT budgets. So what are the top 3 industries that use AI, and how much do they spend per day? What do you think the top 3 are, if you had to guess? Well, number 1 is pretty easy. Software and information services technology providers. The technology sector is far the largest consumer of AI, using it to build cloud infrastructures, automate code generation, power SaaS, software as a service. We now have IaaS, infrastructure as a service. So IaaS, we have that. We basically have now, we have desktop as a service, right? Platform as a service, tech giants, hyperscalers, and enterprise software. That's how that's working. And the banking and financial is the second one. So the software information technology spend $1.8 billion to $1.9 billion per day building some very fast hyperscaler models and data centers, purchasing thousands of next-gen NVIDIA and even proprietary chips daily, and automated coding copilots for internal engineering teams. Banking and financial services, guys, is the next one. It's the second spender. They estimate to spend $104 million, $120 million. Pretty big step down from the $1.8 billion and $1.9 billion of the software companies, right? Of the software and information service provider, technology providers. Where's the money go? Building, cooling, massive hyperscaling data centers. That's what the tech uses it for. Banking, financial institutions heavily prioritize AI for real-time asset protection and algorithmic execution. Banking remains the leading enterprise consumer of AI outside of the tech sector itself. $104 million to $120 million per day. Where's the money go? High throughput. Computing pipelines for instant anti-money laundering, AML checks, microsecond level algorithmic market trading, and AI-driven wealth advisory tools. Who is the third consumer, or I should say industry that uses this, the third out of the list? So we had the first, the second, and third. The third one is retail and e-commerce. Retailers utilize extensive AI infrastructures to run predictive models that manage global logistic chains and serve thousands of users personalized recommendations per minute. Estimated daily spend, $68 million to $85 million per day. Where's the money go? Real-time dynamic pricing engines, automated customer service agent networks, predictive warehouse inventory routing, and computer vision systems for cashierless physical storefronts. And that was the third one. So global versus enterprise spending context is something that we need to understand. While mainstream enterprises spend millions daily, the grand total of AI, global AI spending, which is pretty heavy, in the tech, hardware, manufacturing, consumer, and electronics integration and telecom networks reaches an astronomical $6.9 billion to $7.1 billion. But still pretty interesting, right? If we look at that on the scale of the whole market. And I think a lot of people have to understand how AI works, and you have to know enough from a model whether it's going to work for you or not, right? Big Pharma is using it for lots of research projects. But just knowing that by running some queries, you could get a bill for $10,000, $20,000, a few $1 million, all by running queries. Pretty interesting, right? So some spending disparity by bank scales. Global mega banks like JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, 1.2 to 4 billion in the annual AI strategic tech spend. The tier one markets, 500 million to 500 million to 1.5 billion. Goldman Sachs, BNY Mellon, algorithmic trading. The big one, 1.2 to 4, is being proprietary LLM, front office, agentic models, and things like that. The last model, regional and mid-sized banks, your smaller banks, 10 million to 30 million. Mid-market retail lenders, vendor packaged fraud detection, customer service bots. But the breakdown of banking is this. Bank of America allocates $4 billion of its $13 billion technology budget to strategic growth initiatives heavily anchored in AI. $4 billion of its $13 billion technology budget. That's amazing. JP Morgan Chase explicitly designates $1.2 billion purely for AI out of its broader $19.2 billion technology blueprint. BNY dedicates roughly 19% of its total corporate revenue to tech development, prioritizing enterprise-wide AI deployment. Fraud detection, we said, is a lot. Front office agentic is a lot. Strategic outlook and ROI pressures. So these are some interesting things, and the AI trends are going to keep getting more expensive. They're going to keep going up the scale. And I think a lot of people, they don't really understand that AI is increasing demand for rare hardware components. Chips and advanced processors are becoming, critical bottlenecks. Energy grids will determine how fast AI can actually grow and the environment that it's also in. Without sufficient infrastructure, AI expansion will just collapse. Companies with infrastructure advantage will dominate the AI era. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Control of physical systems becomes more important than software alone. So, ladies and gentlemen, the future of AI is not just about intelligence. It is sustainability under load. You see, the key question is not capability, but instead, long-term viability. Now, they spend hours, days, weeks figuring this stuff out. And they've come to a conclusion that AI is helping their business. So let me see if I can give you an example. If you had one person working your business besides you, that's one person, that person could actually work 8 hours in a day, right? Let's assume that your business had 10 other people besides you. I'm not counting you, I'm just counting them. So 10 people times that, you'd be able to do 80 hours a day. Let's say you had 100 people plus, I'm only counting them, plus 8, that's 800 hours a day. So if you had one chatbot and the chatbot could work, you basically have virtual employees that never get sick. But the thing about AI makes mistakes, and AI is not accountable, unfortunately. And when you complain about AI saying this is what's happening, it says, oh, you're right. You're right. Is that really something we want? AI right now doesn't really check things. It just gives you any old answer. And the answer it gives you is probably not always right. The question is, how do you know when AI is giving you the truth? I think you can use AI as a barometer, but I think you still got to check your facts. We learned what happened to that judge, right? There was a judge that used, where was that guy? So judge disbarred attorney for using AI to fabricate a lawsuit. Remember that? It wasn't too long ago. And that attorney got in a lot of trouble. Judge typically respond to what they call use of AI hallucinations, fictional case law. Federal and state judges regularly strike AI-generated briefs from the record. They remove lawyers from ongoing cases entirely. And suspensions. Attorneys have been temporarily barred from practicing before specific federal or state courts, or had their law licenses suspended by state Supreme Courts for blindly submitting AI-generated fakes. Lawyers are routinely fined, not hundreds, guys, thousands of dollars, and forced to undergo mandatory legal ethics trainings to learn how to properly verify AI-generated content. In cases where attorneys completely fabricate entire underlying lawsuit, it often goes beyond a simple citation error and can lead to criminal obstruction charges or state bar grievance referrals, which may ultimately result in disbarment, which happened not too long ago. So this is kind of interesting, right? They think, it's doing a great job. They submit it, but then when the judge checks and says, wait a minute, that never even happened. There was no flight. There was no company. Like, that never even happened. There was a lawyer that was fired for using AI-generated legal documents with fake citations. 2 lawyers were fined for submitting fake citations generated by AI, highlighting the serious risks of unchecked technology in the courtroom. The example illustrates the risks of using generative AI tools like ChatGPT. All AI-generated content should be verified by lawyers to prevent the submission of fake citations. There was a case, the overview of the incident, Meta versus Avianica, Inc., federal court in New York, involving the plaintiff and the lawyer who used AI to draft a motion that included fabricated citations, which misled the court. Opposing counsel identified false information in the filings, leading to hearings and sanctions, with the court emphasizing the importance of accurate legal documentation. The tool in question is ChatGPT. In case you didn't know, that is the one that is mostly in trouble. It was used to automate motion draftings and generate legal citations. The issue arose when ChatGPT generated content that included misleading references violating ethical standards. AI fabricated the face and the fake case law citations, but used language that presented the illusion of legitimate authority. The lesson learned here is understand AI's capabilities and limitations. AI can suddenly be right and suddenly be wrong. I think that's a big problem. In closing out here today, this episode is about one fundamental truth. AI, regardless of whether you pay for it or not, is never free. It never was. It never will be. It is just now becoming visible to people. There are no free lunches. And as it scales, the world will have to decide how much intelligence it actually can afford. Because the future is not just digital, ladies and gentlemen. It is physical. And it is expensive. And I think when people start to realize they're paying for things, they're getting wrong answers, or it's generating things that aren't even close to what's being asked. AI just takes a detour every once in a while. You ask it to do something, and it just does whatever it wants. And that's a very, very big problem. So AI is not good, ladies and gentlemen. AI is not bad. You've heard me say this before. It's a tool. And how we choose to use it defines whether it's good or whether it's bad. Right? A weapon is a weapon. Is a weapon good? Is a weapon bad? The weapon itself isn't good or bad. It's how the weapon is deployed and used. I think the more we think about AI, the more we got to think about ethics. The more we got to think about the right thing. An interesting thing came up this past week with a client where they were getting calls for months from an AI dialer that was calling their company constantly, a couple times a day. No one ever at the other end of the phone. Their website was just basically scraped. And now they're in a legal proceeding to get this very large public company to admit they're at fault and stop calling them. They're still being called. So when you use an AI system, you need to be accountable and not trust it's going to make the right calls. The system obviously got stuck in a loop, but there was no way to talk to a human. There was no way to opt out. What they were doing, they're spoofing the number, which is also illegal. They blocked the number that it was calling from, but it was calling from the same number, but it was saying on the caller ID that was a different number. That, guys, is a serious, serious problem, right? So people will become more aware of these things when these things actually happen. When they actually happen. I think those are the things, ladies and gentlemen, that we have to be very understanding about. If we're not understanding and we don't know how they work, we've got a responsibility and accountability to learn before they cost us and they cost others discomfort, embarrassment, fines, reputation. You only get one chance to make a good reputation, right? You get one chance. If you blow it, you don't get another chance off it to make a first impression. So why would you use AI to be what makes your first impression? You could use it as a guide, but you should never let it be the be-all, end-all. Ladies and gentlemen, I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. This has been the JMOR Tech Talk Show. And this is where technology meets reality. That's the important thing. Be sure to check out believemeachieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations, short-form content, long-form content, articles, reels, replays of this show, other shows, and so much more. Take the time to learn about AI and use it properly. If you're not going to, then don't use it. Don't deploy it. That's my message to you. Have a great one, everyone, and I'll catch you guys next week in July. Have yourself a great 4th of July.